Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something, well, pretty staggering. A sequence of events that just unfolded, reshaping how we think about regulation, political moves, and global crypto infrastructure, basically overnight. We're talking about a huge pivot, really focusing on one individual, and boom, a national tech launch almost immediately after.
It's quite the story. A real convergence of, let's say, high-level politics and very rapid strategic deployment in the crypto space. So our mission today is to look past the sort of shock headlines and figure out what this chain of events really signifies. We've got the full presidential pardon for CZ, that was October 23rd, 2025, and then almost instantly his public involvement in Kyrgyzstan's big digital currency push.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. You pled guilty, served time 4 months for violating the Bank Secrecy Act, you get pardoned, and literally days later, you're publicly spearheading a sovereign digital currency project halfway around the world. So the big question we're tackling is, is this just a coincidence? Or is it a calculated move, maybe pointing towards a new playbook? What's it telling us about how fast these major players and their tech can move once political hurdles disappear?
Well, we really need to unpack this connection, right? A figure who's just dealing with major U.S. legal issues, now involved in a national finance project. The implications here for compliance, for the BNB chain itself, and frankly, for how capital might move globally. They're not just interesting, they feel pretty fundamental. Let's maybe start with the timeline, the political side of it first.
Okay, yeah, let's nail down that timeline. October 23rd, 2025. U.S. President Donald Trump grants CZ the full pardon. This comes after that 2023 guilty plea, the prison time. Whatever your view on the pardon itself, the immediate result was freedom, political, travel, the works.
And that's really where the pivot point is, the speed of what happened next. It's almost breathtaking. We're talking about him being publicly involved with Kyrgyzstan's national stablecoin and CBDC initiative, almost, well, instantaneously after the pardon. Moving from that restricted U.S. regulatory situation to a major sovereign project in Central Asia that quickly. It's really something.
Okay, but let me push back a bit. Is this maybe just a massive PR move, trying to clean the slate? Or is there a real national strategy playing out here? Because for Kyrgyzstan, the optics, partnering with someone fresh off a major Western regulatory action, that feels like a big gamble, doesn't it?
Oh, it's definitely a gamble, but I think it also shows a kind of geopolitical calculation on Kyrgyzstan's part. What's really fascinating is that the timing suggests, for some nations, maybe smaller ones, the speed of getting this tech, accessing cutting-edge blockchain, the network effect of involving someone like CZ that might just outweigh the risk of, say, annoying Western regulators. It really highlights this global urgent demand for ready-to-go crypto infrastructure.
Right, okay. So let's look at what they're actually building. Kyrgyzstan, Central Asian Republic, about 7 million people, strategically located. What are these products they're launching? And why bring in Binance so directly?
So they're rolling out two distinct but linked digital currency products. It's quite a sophisticated dual approach, actually. First, there's a national stablecoin, and crucially, the source material notes one version is backed by the Russian ruble, so that immediately ties it into a major regional economy. Second, they're developing a digital SOM, that's their official central bank digital currency, a CBDC.
The dual approach. Market stablecoins, sovereign CBDC. That does sound advanced for a nation that size. And the tech provider isn't some legacy banking system, I take it.
Exactly. And that's the crucial tech angle. Both the stablecoin and the CBDC were developed, it seems, in very close cooperation with Binance. And importantly, they run on the BNB chain. CZ himself confirmed on social media that these are live, or at least rolling out now. But here's the part that really jumps out. He also confirmed they've set up a national cryptocurrency reserve. And get this reserve specifically includes Binance's own BNB token.
Wait, hang on. A national sovereign reserve, like the bedrock of a country's financial stability, is now partly made up of a private exchange token like BNB. Let's not just skate over that. That seems, well, unprecedented. What does that even mean for a nation to tie part of its reserve to the fate of a token from a private crypto company?
Well, it fundamentally changes the game for BNB, doesn't it? It kind of elevates it from just being a utility token for trading fees or a layer 1 gas token into something like a quasi-sovereign digital asset, at least in this context. For anyone holding BNB, you could see that as massive validation, right? Like a guaranteed utility floor backed by national policy. But for the wider ecosystem, it introduces huge governance questions. If Kyrgyzstan's financial stability is now somewhat linked to BNB's price swings or its regulatory future, it ramps up the political stakes for the entire BNB chain structure globally. It essentially positions the BNB chain in this instance as a piece of sovereign infrastructure, And that demands a whole different level of regulatory thought, way beyond standard layer 1 stuff.
Wow. Okay, that feels like the core insight. BNB chain testing the waters as geopolitical infrastructure. So let's use that lens. What's for the rest of us in the crypto world? If this works, what happens next?
I think we see maybe 3 big shifts starting to crystallize. First, it's a huge validation for infrastructure tokens. This whole situation shows there's still massive high-stakes demand for these Layer 1 platforms, especially ones that are fast, proven, and importantly, willing to engage with places outside the sort of typical G7 regulatory zones. Platforms like BNB Chain aren't just competing on tech specs anymore. It's about their ability to land these sovereign deals and navigate diverse regulatory waters. So if you're investing, you have to ask, is my L1 portfolio geared towards chains that can actually do this?
And what about digital money itself? Does this change the stablecoin game?
Absolutely. That's the second shift. Stablecoin evolution. A national stablecoin, especially one backed by a major regional currency like the ruble and running alongside a CBDC, it really blurs the lines. We're moving beyond just private stablecoins like Tether or USDC towards state-sponsored or state-integrated digital currencies. The competition isn't just coin versus coin anymore. It's potentially becoming Western fiat-backed versus regionally backed sovereign instruments.
Okay, and third, you mentioned capital flows. This pulls activity away from the usual hubs, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
The third implication is about geographical capital flows. This signals real usage, real capital potentially moving into jurisdictions outside the U.S. and EU, the global south, emerging markets, whatever term you prefer. For crypto investors thinking globally, this changes the risk-reward map. It puts a spotlight on nations prioritizing rapid digital adoption over maybe slower, more bureaucratic Western-style approvals. Speed becomes the weapon for these emerging players.
Yeah, this narrative crypto tech becoming sovereign tech, it definitely feels like it's gathering steam. But we have to do the critical assessment too. This whole setup relies on that tight timeline, where the specific individual and pretty sensitive geopolitical currency backing. What are the big red flags here?
Oh, the risks are significant and immediate. The biggest is probably the geopolitical and sanction risk. That national stablecoin is pegged to the Russian ruble. And we have to state, impartially, the source material flags that one specific version being used, identified as A5A7, had apparently already been sanctioned by Western governments.
Okay, let's clarify that. A5A7, what's the specific risk tied to that identifier? What does that mean for the listener?
So, based on our sources, A5A7 refers to a specific wallet, address, or maybe a smart contract setup that was previously identified in connection with alleged sanctions evasion. By using a ruble-backed instrument linked to a configuration that Western powers already see as problematic, well, Kyrgyzstan is putting its entire digital SOM project, and by extension the BNB chain hosting it, under a potentially intense spotlight for facilitating sanction avoidance.
Which raises the specter of secondary sanctions, right? If the US or EU targets the digital SOM or this A5A7 activity, could the BNB chain itself face global compliance headaches? This isn't just Kyrgyzstan's problem. It potentially puts pressure on the whole platform worldwide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which leads straight into the second major risk, regulatory scrutiny and governance for Binance and the BNB chain. Having a recently pardoned executive involved so quickly in a national project tied to sensitive currencies, that's like a flashing red light for regulators. Think DOJ, OFAC. The pressure on Binance to ensure the tech on BNB chain isn't used for further evasion is now immense. Any misstep could have massive global fallout for the entire ecosystem.
And then there's the risk for Kyrgyzstan itself, the host nation.
Right. The third risk is about durability and transparency. For a smaller country like Kyrgyzstan, pulling off and maintaining such a complex, high-visibility project with foreign private partners is a huge lift technically and in terms of governance. The transparency, especially around what really backs that national crypto reserve, including those BNB tokens, it might not meet, let's say, standard international expectations. That potential lack of robustness adds systemic risk, not just for Kyrgyz citizens, but for anyone globally interacting with or investing in this system.
Wow. It really is a perfect storm, isn't it? You've got the high-stakes politics of the raw power of established crypto tech like Binance and BNB Chain, a sovereign nation making a bold move in a sensitive region, and all of it tangled up with geopolitical currencies and immediate sanction concerns. It's a huge high-wire act.
It really is. It's like the ultimate real-world stress test of whether this kind of regulatory arbitrage can actually build lasting financial infrastructure. And that brings us to the final question we want to leave you, the listener, with, because these deep dives are about connecting dots and thinking ahead. Given that immediate sanction risk linked to the ruble peg in this A5-A7 configuration, how do you think the big global players, The major banks, custodians, the large funds, how will they react? Will they even touch Kyrgyzstan's new digital som? Or will that geopolitical risk just be too hot to handle, no matter how efficient the tech is?
That really is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Will speed ultimately beat compliance in this new digital era? Something to ponder. Now, before you jump into the comments to share your thoughts on that, and please do, just a quick reminder, subscribing, commenting, engaging with the video, it genuinely helps support the channel. It boosts us in the algorithm and lets us keep making this kind of deep dive crypto content for you. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.